And it's just striving to give the students the best day that they can and learn the best skills. So the Fifth Trust is a not-for-profit charity, so any funds that we raise from our social enterprises, selling any of the products that the students make in the Café and the garden centre, if people come in and buy lunch and things like that, it's all, any surplus that we make from those social enterprises are ploughed back into the charity. So all of the money comes back in, so we can then use it to buy more equipment, buy more materials for the students. Obviously you get through lots of art materials, you get through lots of pottery. Everything that we make goes back into the charity as a whole. The charity's been going for 35 years. Initially quite a small charity, supporting people from the homes and then a few externals. We've now got 140 students that we support. They come to the two sites. They choose what they want. We give them a range of 16 different activities every day. So they've got a choice of what activities they want to do. They'll do 2 taster days with us, one at this site at the skills centre at Barham and one at the Vineyard. They'll then choose what activities they want. So it's very much person-centred, led for the students to choose what it is they're wanting to do. The buildings came about from an away day we had with trustees, so senior management team and trustees met in the Vineyard for the day, just looking at our strategy and plans, and it was decided one of our day centre managers, Mike Theoff, decided to he'd just throw the question in and say, well, what we can do about the buildings. The buildings up at the skills centre are 35 years plus, they're not going to last forever. So the concept then came about that actually we needed to fundraise for a whole new skills centre. So we worked with architects who came in and did some work with the students, looked at the old site, walked around the old site, what do they like, what do they dislike, did picture cards, crosses and ticks for what they liked about the site and what they didn't like, so that we could try and keep some of those concepts. That was 6 years ago, and it's taken us 6 years to fundraise for it. But in the meantime, trips back and forth to keep the students in the loop, talking to the students. The students have been involved in the whole session, from colour schemes, what they think the building should look like. It was difficult for them to envisage the scheme. And then it was decided actually we couldn't afford to do it all in one hit. The whole design was getting on for 2 million. And all of a sudden it was like, where do we get those resources from? So we applied to the National Lottery, different grant-making funds that supported us. Lots of people thought we'd never get it off the ground. Fantastic idea, but come back to us when you're 20 or 30 grand from the end of it, because we don't think you'll ever do it. Well, 6 years ago, we didn't think we'd do it. Here we are today, sitting in the building that we did manage to do it, and rather than doing it in phases, we managed to do it in one big hit. So we could secure the project. By doing it in phases would have been cheaper and allowing us to get the money in from the different grant-making organisations at different times, but then also the cost would go up. And as we knew when we were fundraising before, we knew COVID hit, that affected it, prices have gone up since, so we were lucky that we were able to secure, we were 40,000 off of what we wanted. So as a board, trustees and the senior management team just said, let's just go for that, 40,000, we must be able to get that in if we've raised nearly 2 million. Great, so we got to that stage we were able to pull the trigger. So we engaged HMY as our architects to come in and put their plan into fruition. Bettridge and Milsom were our project managers. They went out to 3 tenders. Bream was successful with their tender. Working with HMY, we had site meetings, so you could have a look around the site, you could see everything, you could see things coming in. I'm certainly somebody that on a plan, I can't visualise where it would be. I like to visually see something, and just seeing the buildings coming from out of the ground, and then you see the footprint and you think, wow, is it really going to be that big? Because we envisaged the smaller buildings we had before, And so once they started taking shape, that was great. So it was great to be able to be on site. The problem we had, we still had to operate at the same time as building. So we couldn't demolish the old buildings until we were able to accommodate the students in the new buildings, because we still had to provide a service to the students. But HMY and Bream were fantastic with working with us along our health and safety, what we needed to put in. We put in temporary pathways and that type of thing, so the site was still accessible safely to our students, because obviously for that long period of time, financially, we just couldn't shut down and say to people, you can't come in. But it was great because students and staff could see it taking place. So they were just as excited as we were to see the buildings go up. So when they come onto the site, this is the first building they come into, is the Bradbury Hub. So that's our social side. So it's the big area of the canteen, so they have their lunch here. We've got a small kitchen which we'll be doing life skills in, so teaching people anything from making a cup of tea to actually living on their own independently, so anything from finances right the way through. We'll also be utilising this main part of the hub for social events, so our Christmas parties, that type of thing. We normally have to hire a village hall. We'll have our own area, so we won't have that outlay, so the students will be able to have their parties and things in here. They obviously socialise. It's used as a classroom if it's wet, so people can't be outside doing any of the horticulture classes. If it's really wet or severely in the winter, they'll be using the areas in here. Then we go out the building. It was very important for us to have a step-free access, so that anybody in a wheelchair can access the whole of the site. So that's what we've got. That's what HMY designed for us very successfully, so that they can access all parts of the areas. The first building, when you go out of the Bradbury Hub, you go down to, is Lucy's Media Suite. That's where our IT sits. We've got an IT classroom and a craft classroom. So in IT, they do anything from working on the computers, sending emails. We've allowed people to communicate with people that they wouldn't normally, family and that they wouldn't normally communicate with because they lived away or abroad, so they're able to actually send emails to them. Got fully working smart boards, even down to just doing puzzles and things like that for the hand and eye coordination, just to make sure someone that can't use a mouse can use a smart board because it's a touch screen. And then as you go along, the third building is our art studio. That's got our 2 art classrooms in. Both of our instructors in those are qualified artists, both with different skills, different designs, different ideas. The students then paint their pictures, drawings, whatever they're wanting to do in those areas, and they're put onto the computer, so they're scanned in, so they can then be turned into cards, postcards, and sold within our cafe and in the garden centre. And they often do a picture, they'll buy it themselves and take it home, or they'll allow us to go to art exhibitions with it and sell their work that way. And it's just striving to give the students the best day that they can and learn the best skills. We push all of our students on a daily basis to achieve the maximum potential that they can. That also goes to our staff. We challenge our staff to do the same, and we strongly like investing in our staff to do courses so that they can then give the student the best ability. So yeah, I think these new buildings are just a start for us to actually progress and offer more facilities for students in the future.